Today I'm joined by Louis Coetzee, who is CEO at Kibo Energy. How are you today, Louis?
I'm very well, thank you, Zach.
Tell us a little bit about what Kibo Energy does.
Well, Kibo Energy recently repositioned itself as a pure energy company, provider of energy solutions in Sub-Saharan Africa. We completed this repositioning in August last year in 2018. And we have subsequently built a very exciting portfolio of projects within the company. We are at the moment developing a 150 to 300 megawatt coal-fired power plant in Mozambique. We are also doing a 300 megawatt coal-fired power plant in Botswana. And in the UK, we are involved in the reserve energy market, where we bought a 60% interest in Master Energy Developments towards the end of last year. And then we are also still developing and working on our 300 megawatt coal-fired power plant in Tanzania.
Tell us about what the demand is for energy. Just give us an idea about that.
In Tanzania?
Or just in general?
Well, we all know and we all understand that Africa, for that matter, is the so-called last frontier of big economic development. But we also know that Africa's biggest inhibitor for that economic development to actually start to happen and to really take off is the fact that it just cannot supply in the energy demands. So the energy demand in Africa is immense. And if we want to see that GDP growth of 2 to 3% growing year on year, they will have to solve the energy crisis or the energy deficit that we see in Africa. And none so more than in the countries where we are busy developing the projects we're working on.
Presumably that deficit is also in Tanzania, where you just had some news regarding one of your projects.
The energy deficit in Tanzania is probably one of the countries in the region where the energy demand is the biggest. And it's partly because of the very strong industrialization policy and industrialization initiatives introduced by the current Tanzanian government. They have very ambitious plans for the development of Tanzania. But if you take into consideration that it's a country with almost 50 million people, and only about 2,000 megawatts installed generating capacity, it gives you an idea of how big that deficit is. If you add to that the very ambitious industrialization plans that they have as well.
And your news out of Tanzania, it came as a, let's say, a surprise to the market. How did that pan out for you?
Yes, it is a surprise. It was a surprise to us. It was a surprise to everybody who's worked with us on this particular tender qualification. But that's the way things go. You apply and then you qualify, or you don't qualify. You win the tender or you do not win the tender. In our case, we did not qualify at this point in time. We have asked for particular clarification on that. It is a very well-developed project. We've done full feasibilities on both the mine and the power station. We have full environmental certification on both the mine and the power station. We have EPC contracts in place. We have OEM contracts in place. So it's a very strong and a very well-developed project. Having said that, that doesn't mean that this is the end for us in Tanzania. Tanzania still, as I've just explained, has a tremendous need and requirement for energy. And we've always been saying about the Tanzanian project that we want to do it in 3 phases. The first phase was aimed at providing or supplying energy to the national utility, to TANESCO. The second phase was more aimed at the export market, and then the third phase was aimed on the domestic market. Now, the export market is still wide open for us. That has not gone away. If anything, it has grown. And what we've seen also is that the demand from private off-takers has developed quite a bit in Tanzania as well. So, yes, we have we've experienced a setback in terms of the news that we got on Friday, but it certainly did not close the options that are still open for us.
So Tanzania is still very much live, still very much ongoing. It's a bump in the road, is that the way we describe it?
Well, I would say definitely, that's probably the best way to describe it, but Tanzania is still in play, it's definitely in play. As we've explained just now, the energy deficit will not be solved by the tender qualification that is in process at the moment. It goes a certain distance towards solving that need for energy, but it doesn't solve it. It doesn't satisfy the full need. So the opportunities are still there and still open for us.
So if TANESCO doesn't eventually happen, what are the other options that you have?
We still have the export market in the region. We still have the domestic market in terms of private offtake. We also have a situation where we understand that the tender that is ongoing at the moment does not satisfy the full need for energy. So our opportunity, our lines of communication and interaction with TANESCO is still there. And if we did not qualify on this round, it doesn't mean that we're excluded from any future projects.
And in terms of the timescale, let's say Tanesco is ongoing. Other deals, how long might they take to appear? 3 months, 6 months, a year? What are the timescales? Because clearly on the small cap investors, very impatient. They want things done yesterday.
Well, fortunately for Kibo, we have a number of other projects that we are working on as well. As I've explained in the beginning of the interview, we have some very exciting projects going in Botswana and Mozambique and here in the United Kingdom. We therefore obviously have to assess the impact that the news that we received on Thursday last week, how does that impact on Kibo and on its strategy? That's what we will be doing over the next couple of weeks, and look at what the shortest possible avenues are open, or which avenues are open to us to replace the objective that we had for Tanesco at this point in time. Very difficult to put a precise timeline on that, but we're certainly not talking about years in terms of getting this in place. These are opportunities that we're working on already. We are on record in the past that we've said that we will be looking at the export market, at private off-takers. And those are conversations that have been going on in the background while we were focusing our attention more on the Tanesco off-take.
So you've got opportunities running in parallel. It's not something where
Absolutely.
You're not waiting for one thing to happen, then you start something else.
We've always done Elvis. We've always try to explain it in that way also, that we are looking at different opportunities. But at some point, you've just mentioned it, it's a small cap company. You have to be very careful in how you apply your resources, where you focus it. So for us at this point in time, it's more a matter of refocusing resources.
Non-Tanzania, what are the hottest prospects that you have in those geographies?
At the moment, it's probably our projects in Mozambique. The project in Mozambique is making very good progress. As we've said in recent RNSs as well, we are ahead of schedule in terms of the development that we are busy with in Mozambique. That is progressing really well. So we're very excited about that. Having said that, we're also making good progress in Botswana and elsewhere. But I would say Mozambique is a short header ahead of the others at the moment.
What's the Mozambique? What's the detail on that?
Well, we are developing 150 to 300 megawatt coal-fired power plant at the moment in the northwestern area, right in the center of where the big mining activity of the country is happening and where the big coal mines are as well. First phase of that is a 150 megawatt plant, which we are developing for both offtake by the national utility, but also private offtakers. And in both instances, we already have letters of comfort for offtake.
And just bring us back to the UK, just a little bit of detail on that as well.
The focus in the UK was more on the reserve energy market, where there's a growing market at the moment with some really good opportunities to participate in that. We saw a really good opportunity to get into this market and to get a very short, it provides us with a very short route towards first revenue into the company. And as we've recently announced, we hope to see first revenue coming into Kibo by last quarter of this year, for first quarter of next year, where we will hopefully have the first 2 sites operational.
And in terms of the financials, is there cash in the bank to see you through to those deals?
Well, each deal will demand its own funding requirement. At the moment, we are coping with what we have to do in terms of the ongoing development of the projects. But as we progress and as we develop them towards maturity, towards construction phase, we will obviously be in a position to be more creative and also bring in play debt funding and project funding for each one of these projects.
Coetzee, CEO at Kibo Energy, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Zach.